Firstly, thank you to everyone for coming. Got nearly 20 people here. And also thank you to Ashera Kruger for arranging this. Unbelievable. And for having so many people coming before Pesach to hear some words of Torah. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and the honor of sharing this time with you. So I know you're probably hearing so many shiurim and there's so much information out there. In fact, it's a bit of like information overload. And there is definitely something pretty incredible with the times we're living in. I don't want to overly focus on what we're going through now. I'm sure many of you are getting so much brilliant shiurim and feedback in that space. What I really want to speak about is Pesach, because there's actually this constant theme. If you think about it, Pesach has been happening for nearly 3,500 years. Every single year, no matter what has happened, whether it was literally the Jewish people living in the desert to going into the land of Israel, or whether it was moving from the land of Israel through all our Goluyos, and whether we were in Bovel or whether we were in Rome, Pesach always took place. In fact, there's a beautiful song that you can probably download. It's a bit of an old song by Michal Streicher called The Last Seder. And it's a story of a Seder that happened in the Warsaw Ghetto. And wherever we have been in the world, there's always been a Pesach. We're always going to have Pesach, please God, as long as we're here in this world. And there's something so incredible about it, because Pesach is all about speaking. If you think about it, the halacha actually is very interesting, that Pesach and the Seder night is all about asking questions. We know that you ask, one person asks another, the children ask their parents the questions of the Seder, Manishtana Laila Zeh, that's how it starts off, and then we answer them, Avodim Hayinu, B'Farah B'Mitzrayim, and the whole Seder, even right in the beginning, we start asking the children, we take on the Seder plate, we take off the Seder plate, all these things are sometimes just to invoke the curiosity and to start asking the questions. And why is it in fact that way? Why is it that the whole transmission of our faith, the transmission of our belief that we came out of Egypt and Hashem brought us into the land, gave us the Torah and brought us into the land of Israel? Why is that all predicated on the concept that we have to ask? Why is that the format that we transfer and transmit this concept of Pesach and the concept of our emunah, the concept of our faith? Why is it like that? And I want to share with you a brilliant idea that the word Pesach, right, Pesach, is also an acronym for two words, which is Pesach. Pe being the mouth, Sach, that speaks. So Pesach is an acronym for two words, which means Pesach, the mouth that speaks. So we see that the very essence of Pesach and the very essence of the entire Seder is all about the mouth that speaks. That is what it is. That's what Pesach is about. And what is the reason? What is the depth for this concept that Pesach is all about us speaking? And that's what is essential. You can't have a Seder without asking the questions. You can't have a Seder without having that to and fro, that shaklavataria between people. And what is the reason behind it? So I want to share with you that there's two opinions when in the morning brachas that we get up every morning and say, when you say Elokai Neshama. So if you've got an art scroll siddur, you'll probably notice that it goes like this, and bear with me. It goes like this. So it's got, we're going to leave out all the other stuff, like putting on tefillin and matoivu, etc. But effectively, when we get to the brachas, so in like an art scroll, it goes first Al Natilas Yadayim, then it has Asher Yotzar, then it has the Birkas HaTorah, all the brachas, the three brachas for the Torah. Then it's got Elokai Neshama, and then it's got all the other 15 morning brachas. Fine. But you can see what I'm focusing in here is that Asher Yatzar and Elokai Neshama are not connected one to another. In fact, the brachas of the Torah are between them. In other Siddurim, you'll find that straight after Asher Yatzar is the bracha of Elokai Neshama. So you finish Rafei Kol Basar Umafli La'asos Elokai Neshama Shenasatabi. That's how you find it in many Sidurim, and that's the way that in many places the correct way to do it, which is unlike the Art Scroll. There definitely are opinions that say like very much like the Art Scroll puts it, but many Sidurim say not like that. And what's the reason for that? So the Ramah explains that if you look at Asher Yotzar, it talks about all our physical needs, right? Asher Yotzar is Adam B'chokhmah, Hashem, you created us with many different organs, and they all have to work in a certain way. Valves open and close, different things have to work in a certain way. And we finish that bracha by saying, Baruch atah Hashem, Rofeicho basar, Hashem, you heal all flesh, okay? And umafli la'asos, and it's wondrous. And you act wondrously. Umafli la'asos, your doings, what you do is wondrous. Then we go to the bracha Elokai Neshama, and I'll loop it back in a minute. Elokai Neshama is all our spiritual needs. Elokai Neshama shasar to be Hashem, the neshama which you gave me, tahirahi, it's pure. Atom Neshamra, you gave it to me, you protected it in me. So we see that Asher Yotzar on the one hand is everything about our physical needs, and Elokai Neshama is all about our spiritual needs. Now listen to this, which is so unbelievable. That what links Asher Yotzai to Elokai Neshama, according to those opinions like the Ramah that says that you should join them together, is the words umafli la'asos. Umafli la'asos, which means you act wondrously. The Ramah says that when you unite the physical and spiritual sides of your being into one, that is truly a wonder. The fact that Hashem created spiritual beings like angels, and they're incredible and they're all powerful, and some of them can fly across the universe from one side to another. It's unbelievable. But on the other hand, it's not wondrous because there's a spiritual entity, there's a spiritual world, and that in and of itself is incredible, but it's not a wonder. And the same thing applies to all the animals. You can go into nature and see all the incredible animals in the wild with all the instincts. And the lion, even from when it's born, it knows that it wants to hunt. And you know, like the impala, from the second it's born, it knows that it needs to flee. Unbelievable. The instincts that Hashem created in the universe are amazing, but it's not wondrous. The thing that is wondrous in this universe, the only thing that's wondrous, is not the spiritual realm, it's not the angels, and it's also not the animals. In fact, the Rabbeinu Bechaya in Parshas Ra'eh says this exact concept. He says that it's that the fact that there's animals that follow their instincts and they praise Hashem through their instincts, Kol Haneshama Tahalel Ka, is the way it is, because everything that they do, they're hardwired to praise Hashem. And the same it goes with all the angels. They're hardwired to praise Hashem. The angels, every moment of the day, they're praising Hashem because that's all they know how to do. But you want to know it's really wondrous? You know what's so incredible? It's incredible that Hashem created a being that is made up of both physical and spiritual elements. One part of them is pulling them upwards to do good and to recognize the truth and to recognize godliness. And the other side of them is pulling them down to their instinct and to their base animal behavior. And you know what a human being is? Nevertheless, though they pull between these two sides in a constant battle between good and bad, and yet we are able to still choose good over bad. That is wondrous. And that's why, says Rav Hutner, that you have the bracha of Asher Yotzar followed by Elokai Neshama, because those words, the last two words, Mafli La'asos, are actually the connecting concept between blessing Hashem for us, our physical being, and acknowledging Hashem for our spiritual being. But Mafli La'asos means that it's a wondrous thing that Hashem put us together in such a way that we all part human, we're all part spiritual angel, we're all part animal, we're all part physical, and that amazing connection, which is wondrous, because actually it's like putting two sides of a magnet together, which would automatically want to deflect one side from another, but Hashem put it in a body, He put us together in such a way, and in that place, we can choose. If you want to know where our free choice takes place, it takes place in those moments when we become human beings and our physical and our spiritual, which are fighting each other constantly, come together. That is Umafli La'asos. So again, that's why the bracha of Asher Yotzar is immediately followed by the bracha of Elkai Neshama because of those two words at the end of the bracha, or mafli lasos. That Hashem, you gave us all our blessings in a spiritual, in a physical sense. And then we got everything, all our blessings, we acknowledge you in a spiritual sense. And what joins the two, the mafli lasos, the Hashem who acts wondrously, is this concept of Hashem, you put these two sides of our being together. And in that moment, in that supernatural wonder that Hashem created us, being both spiritual, both angelic, and both physical, yet we have an ability in that moment to choose and to do good. I don't know how you all feel, but sometimes I feel almost a little bit like bipolar. You know, on the one side, we want to do good, and our soul pulls us, elevates us, pushes us to do good. And on the other hand, we sometimes brought down, and it's hard to actually get going. It's hard to get moving. It's hard to do good. And sometimes we just want to veg and almost do nothing. But it's in that dichotomy, it's in that connection, it's in that moment of such conflict within ourselves, and every single person has this conflict. You can't, if you give up this conflict, you either just become an animal or you leave this world in something which is not human. Humans are constantly in this conflict, and it's a conflict between good and evil. But I want to share with you something even beyond what I've just said now. That if you want to know the exact moment or the exact point of where physically and spiritually we come together, right? So it's the moment between the Asher Yotzar, Hashem, you create us physically, and Elokai Neshama, and we got a spiritual Neshama, a spiritual component to our being. That exact moment of where it comes together is the moment where we're able to speak. Let me explain what I mean in the moment we can speak. The Rambam, in all the Rambam's halachas regarding anything got to do with speech, he calls them the book of Hafla'ah. Now that book, Hafla'ah, from the same word, mafli lasos, which we could loosely translate as the book of wonders. So the Rambam's halachic book on all laws governing speech, like vows and nedarim, nedavos, all those kind of halachas, are in the book of Hafla'ah, which could be, and most literally is translated as the book of wonders, is the book regarding speech. Fantastic thing to call the book of speech the book of wonders. You know, you think it opened the book of wonders and it's got all the magical stuff, all the stuff which is supernatural. And in fact, that is actually the truth, because the ability that human beings have to speak, our ability that we have to communicate, is truly this most supernatural and wondrous thing that we've been given. And I'll explain to you why. If you think about it, when we convey an idea in speech, what we are really doing is taking something in our mind, which is spiritual by nature. Our mind, the seichel, is something which is spiritual. And we're looking at another human being in this world, which is obviously physical, right? We're communicating here via Zoom, which is simply a physical connection using sound waves and optic waves in order for us to communicate and to connect. So you are taking something which is in my mind, which I've been thinking about, I've been learning about, and I'm looking at you through my screen, and you can see me, which is totally physical, and I can share in that moment something which happened in the spiritual realm and then shared it in the physical realm. So the place where we get to choose and we get to show that as choosing beings, we are living both spiritually and physically as one, as human beings, that is in our ability to speak and to communicate. You know, the Balei Musa speak about the four levels. Sorry, it's actually pre the Balei Musa speak about the four levels of being in this world. The very lowest level is the domain, is the inanimate objects, things like stones, mountains, rocks, etc. They are domain, they can't speak. Then you've got the level above that, which is the level of tzameach, which means it grows. So think of the plant world, trees and grass. They are able to grow and they get nourishment from the sun and they breathe to a certain extent. Then you've got a level above that, which is the level called chai, which is the living world, and that's of course all the animals and the whales and the fish in the sea and the birds, etc. They are beyond just physical. They're beyond being able to grow. They actually at a level where they are alive. And then the highest level, which is the level of a human being, interestingly, is not called a Homo sapien, but is called a medaber, is a person that speaks. And again, the reason is exactly what we're saying now. The reason is because what makes us uniquely human being is the ability to connect the spiritual to the physical, and that connection takes place in speech. That's why the definition of a human being in Torah thought is that the human being is able to speak. That's what gives us this unique quality. I'm going to tell you something which I think when I read it absolutely blew my mind. The first time I saw it, I think, was about a year ago, but I saw it again now, and it absolutely blew my mind. You know, that of all the leaders of the Jewish people, of course, there was no one as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Lo kam navi k'Moshe. There was no one ever as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu had a massive defect. Moshe Rabbeinu's defect, it says in the Torah, is that he said himself, he says when Hashem says to him at the snare, at the burning bush, Hashem says, you're going to go and lead my people and take them out of Egypt. And he says, how can I do it? I have an impediment of my lips, literally, but I have an impediment of my mouth. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak. Some say that he stuttered. Some say that he stammered. Some say, I think it's the Medrash, in fact, that says that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak properly. And the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak is because when he was just a young child and he was brought in front of Paroi, and Paro wanted to test him, so Moshe Rabbeinu at that moment wouldn't kiss the ring of Paro, which was like an avodah zarah, because Paro considered himself a god, and rather he touched the burning coal to his lips, and that's why he couldn't speak. That's what the Medrash says. But you've got to hear what the Maharal says. The Maharal says something so incredible that it will blow your mind. But as an introduction to that, a few years ago, Rav Tzvi Kushelevsky, the great Rosh Yeshiva, came to Ashul, and it was Parshas Nosoi, and he shared this idea based on the Medrash, which says like this, that at least three people in the Torah that come to mind, Hashem calls them and they answer Hashem. By Avram Avinu, Hashem calls him Avraham, by Yomer Hineni, and he says, behold, here I am. By Yaakov Avinu, it says the same thing. Hashem called Yaakov, and he said, here I am. By Moshe, the same thing happens, but there's a subtle difference that unless you are a proficient Baal Koreh and you read from the Torah, you wouldn't pick up the difference. But if you open your Chumash, you'll see this difference. That when it says by Yomer and Hashem called Avraham, there's a line between the first Avraham and the second Avraham. And actually, if you're reading in the Torah, you should read it by Yomer Avraham. You have a little pause. The same thing by Yaakov. By Yomer Yaakov. But by Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no line. And Hashem called him Moshe, like that. You read it without a pause, without any interruption. And what's the reason? So the reason is because when Hashem called Avraham and Yaakov and Moshe, and he called it with this dual name, with this double barrel, so what he was doing is calling to all sides of him, to his spiritual and physical. Hashem's voice permeated throughout Avraham's being, both the physical and the spiritual side. The same with Yaakov, both the physical and the spiritual. But Moshe Rabbeinu's physical and spiritual was so connected one to another that when Hashem called him Moshe, there's no line, there's no pause, there's no interruption, because it was the same spiritual and physical Moshe Rabbeinu. Now listen to what the Maharal says, why Moshe Rabbeinu had Aral Sefasayim, why he had a stammer or a stutter. He had some impediment of the mouth that he couldn't speak. The Maharal says that what we've just explained now, the fact that what makes us uniquely human, Mafli Lasos, which makes us wondrous and uniquely human, is the ability to take something spiritual, connect with someone physical, and to share the abstract spiritual idea with a very tangible companion. And that happens in speech. Moshe Rabbeinu was so abstract. He was so caught in the spiritual realm to the point that he didn't have to eat and didn't have to sleep when he went up to Har Sinai for the 40 days and 40 nights. So Moshe Rabbeinu's being was almost totally tilted on the spectrum of spiritual. He was a one in an entire history human being, Yotze min haklal, unlike almost anyone else in the entire universe. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech impediment, because our ability to speak is our ability to be uniquely human, that we are 50% spiritual and 50% physical. Moshe Rabbeinu, that was much more than 50% spiritual, struggled to speak because he couldn't take that abstract idea, which was all-encompassing in his being, and almost share it. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was our Al Safasayim. Isn't that an incredible idea that can blow your mind? By the way, after Matan Torah, where Hashem healed all the people that needed healing, Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that says, Eile advar masher diber Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that shared the whole Torah. Because after Matan Torah, we were all healed. But for Moshe Rabbeinu, what it means is that Moshe Rabbeinu became so balanced that he was able to share, and he was no longer our Al Safasayim. If we link this back to what we are saying, the Rambam says, as I mentioned, that the book which talks about speech is the book of Haflo, or Mafli Lasos. It's the book of wonders, because that is the place where we get to have free choice. That is the place where we get to be true human beings, where we are pulled, on the one hand, down to earth by animalistic behaviors, by our physical behaviors. On the one hand, we elevated into the heavens and driven into the heavens. And it's in that constant conflict that we get to choose good over evil. And we get to choose it most specifically when we get to speak, because we get to convey abstract ideas. And just as an aside point here, this explains why the worst sin that a person can do is actually Lashon Hara, because you're taking that uniquely powerful human quality of speech, of being able to convey something spiritual to someone else that is physical, and you're using it for the wrong purpose. That's why Lashon Hara is actually the worst sin in the whole Torah. It's equal to the other three cardinal sins, because you are misusing this power, this wondrous power that Hashem gave us. That's part of the reason, as an aside, in parentheses, why Lashon Hara is so evil and why Lashon Hara is so dangerous. But just to see, this is really our power on Pesach. Pesach is the festival of speech. That's why the Seder is all about question and answer. That's why even if there's no one there, you still have to answer question and answer. That's why the main portion of the Seder is Magid, where everything is spoken about, Manishtana, Avodim Hayinu, etc., back and forth throughout the entire Seder. The reason is because what are we trying to do for the last nearly 3,500 years at the Seder? We are remembering that Hashem took us out of Egypt to live as free beings with free thinking ability and the ability to choose good over evil. And where does that happen more than any other place? It happens when we take an idea that is abstract and we speak it, which is absolutely wondrous. And when we speak it, in those moments of speech, we convey something spiritual and abstract into the physical. And that's the power of Pesach. Pesach is our most human time, when we get to shine, because we get to share words that are beautiful, words that are abstract, words that are Torah thoughts. We get to go into the heavens, literally bring down an idea into our minds and share them with those people around the table. And I just want to conclude, because we're nearly coming up to our half an hour over here. I want to conclude with just the following very brief idea. When we're sitting around our tables this year, and I'm sure there are going to be far fewer people around our Seder tables, normally maybe their grandparents or their grandchildren, there's siblings from overseas, there's guests at our Seder table, maybe there's people that don't have another place to go, and this is their opportunity to come together. All those things this year are taken away. Many tables are going to be just two older people sitting alone, grandparents sitting alone. Maybe I know someone mentioned to me that there's some young people. Someone said to me that in Israel that they just got a couple of young siblings sitting together because they couldn't get home here to South Africa, and that's where they're going to be having the Seder. But I think that there's something incredible about this opportunity for this year, for this Seder. And I think what it is that sometimes we get so caught up maybe in the pomp and ceremony of the Seder, which is so beautiful, all the family and generations and multiple generations, and it's so incredible. But this year we get to actually attach ourselves to the essence of the Seder. And the essence of the Seder is just that simple speech, taking your mind, your spiritual ability, conveying it to someone else who is physically either sitting next to you or even not. You even can say it even if you're there by yourself. And in those moments, conveying our free choice and our unique ability to be human, that is the power of the Pesach Seder. That is the power of transference, of transmittance from one generation to another. And we know when we do that, we live as pure, spiritual, physical human beings. That is the ultimate which Hashem wants us to do. And in that ultimate position that Hashem wants us to be, the spiritual, physical dichotomy known as the human being, we can achieve greatness. We can connect to Hashem in the greatest way, and at the other hand, be completely here down to earth. We're not some kind of esoteric being. We're physical beings with our heads deep, deep, deep into the heavens. And that reminds me, of course, that was Yaakov Avinu's dream. When Yaakov Avinu went to sleep that fateful night as he had, and he saw the angels, Oilim v'Yardim, it says that the ladder was very firmly on the ground, and yet Roisha Magia Shemaima, that the top was high up in the heavens. And that's how we should think of our Pesach. We should be firmly rooted on the ground. Our minds and our spiritual should be deep into the heavens, and the connection between those two, which is what makes us human, what makes us choosing, is very much our ability to communicate, to speak. Let us not lose this opportunity. Let us use it to the maximum, and please God, it should be a Pesach Lashon Haba B'Yerushalayim. Thank you so much once again to Ashira Kruger. I just wanted to also dedicate this share as a refuah shlema for my cousin in the United States who's just gone onto a ventilator, Pesach Yaakov ben Sarah Leah, with the coronavirus. He's a young guy. He's in his mid-30s. And please God, Hashem should give him a refuah shlema. Everyone can say Amen on your side of your computer screens. And Hashem should just protect and bless everyone in this world. I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful Pesach, and thank you so much.